podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome to the Ground Jewels. My name is James Dixon, and I'm delighted you've joined us this week. The Ground Jewels is a podcast that celebrates special sporting places and people who love them. This week we have Henry Winter. He's a football journalist who you should know. Henry's been a leading journalist in Britain for a long, long time, with the Times and Telegraph and many more besides that. And it's really interesting because often we'll have someone on this programme like Adam Rutherford with Ipswich Town, or Ailey Doyle with Heart of Midlothian, Ruth Madeley with Bolton Wanderers. All of those episodes are available in our archive, by the way. We'll have people on who pick grounds to be ground jewels because they are fans of that team and they have so many formative and special memories of being there. And that's great. And we love those episodes. But Henry's episode is a little bit different. Henry's coming at this from a more objective place. So, yeah, lots of really interesting stuff from Henry. And I think it's a good episode of the podcast, and I'm sure you'll love it.
So today on the programme, we're joined by one of football's hottest free agents, the journalist, author, and for almost a decade, the chief football writer for The Times, with stints at The Telegraph and The Independent before that. Henry, welcome to the Ground Jewels.
Oh, I'm very honoured to be on. Thank you, James.
This is like an England international turning out for a Sunday League side. What brings you to our little niche corner of the internet, and what ground are you going to talk about?
Well, thank you for inviting me. Well, first, I was really taken with the name. It's a brilliant name. Ground Jewels. I wish I'd thought of that. For me, so many, but I settled on St James's Park because of the atmosphere, because one club cities tend to have a particular dynamic, because of the walk up to the ground from the station or wherever I park my car nearby. It's always a unique experience.
Yeah, St James's Park is superb. My dad is a huge Newcastle fan, and he'll be ecstatic right now. And I do want to talk about that walk to the stadium, because particularly from the train station, I think it's brilliant. But since we've got the reigning sports SJA, Sports Journalists Association, and Football Supporters Football Writer of the Year on the programme, you're the perfect person to ask this first question to. Should St James's Park have an apostrophe or not?
It does, doesn't it?
The metro station doesn't have one. The street that it's sort of named after doesn't have one. But the stadium does. It's a contentious area, and we've got to settle it. But I think this is the most important use of our time.
Yeah, I do quite like it, and I'm a bit of an apostrophe. I'm a member of the apostrophe police. Whenever I sort of see it, particularly outside fruit and veg sellers, it tends to annoy me. But look, it's Newcastle. They can do what they want.
So, do you remember your first visit to St James's Park?
It was probably under Keegan. That the Keegan's entertainers, the noise, the atmosphere, Andy Cole scoring, just the sort of the emotion about the place, and just the people. Stadiums are bricks and mortar and a bit of steel, but it's the flesh and blood that makes it. It's the people inside. You can have the most elegant stadium in the world, but if you don't have that sort of emotional connection and emotional buzz from the terraces, it's pointless. If you actually look at St James's Park, it's not actually that beautiful a stadium. It's not like, say, the Allianz or Bramley-Moore Dock, Everton's new ground. That's stunning, partly because of the backdrop of the Mersey. There's some Porto Dragao. That's a stunning stadium architecturally, visually. St James's Park is maybe a little bit about the city. It's all about the people. It's all about the entertainment inside.
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of, I guess, lopsided. And that comes about because it's Leazes Park and the conservation area and the issues they have with sort of developing one side of the ground because of the Grade 1 listed buildings. But I think it's sort of all the more charming for it. And actually, you don't want your football stadiums to be too clean, do you? You don't want them to be too pristine. Often, it's that little bit of grit that is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the main issue I have with it is the away fans are up in the gods, and regardless of, they've slept up the A1 and they've then got to get the oxygen out to sort of climb a Geordie Everest. So look, I think they should be lowered down. I know there are issues with configuration, security, safety, whatever. But I think it's a Premier League guideline, if not a rule, that the away fans have to be at pitch level. And I think at all other clubs they are, or certainly in a more prominent position. Old Trafford, they're slightly raised, but they're still close to the pitch. So I just think it's sort of slightly unfair. But maybe it adds to the sort of the intensity of the Newcastle support. But again, it's the music beforehand. It's the fans. It's the the tifos and the banners that they have. It's the songs they come up with. It's the whole buzz about the place, and it truly reflects a buzzing city.
It does, and I was going to come on to talk about the away fan. Tottenham went this year. They went. They had to. All the way up from London, all the way up to the third tier, and then you've got to go all the way back down again to storm out when your team's 4-0 down at half time. It's just, it's not a fair situation.
No, it's not. It's not. But at least you get a good vantage point, and you can probably look out and see the boats heading out of the Tyne. I mean, look, it's a great place to go. It's actually a very welcoming place. I think you'll find that away fans are well treated. There are enough sort of pubs. I mean, they probably can't squeeze into Shearer's or the Strawberry, but there are enough pubs, particularly opposite the station. I can't remember what it's called. It's named after a train or something. And there's one. Is it the Comet? There's one just opposite the station where a lot of the away fans go. I remember Arsenal fans there early this season. They were all out there in numbers. It was a nice warm day, spilling off the pavements, and it was a. And then the walk from the station is just one of the great walks when you get off the train. I remember I got accosted by a hen party there once. He said, "Come and join us on the hen party." And I was there. I don't think I had a suit and tie on, but I was vaguely smartly dressed. And, I didn't look like I was ready for a stag party, let alone a hen party. And I said, I've got to work. And they went maybe later. And I just like that sort of atmosphere. And this was on the platform. I hadn't even got through the ticket barriers. And then you cross the road. And then you got that little Ginnell, that little sort of Dickensian side alley with a sort of kebab shop on the left and the sort of the bars on the right. And you look in there and often get the train from the south on a Sunday on a match day, and they're like the sort of 12 or 2 o'clock games going on. You look in the bars and everyone's got one eye on the television and then one eye on their phones, waiting for team news just to see, is Bruno Guimaraes starting? Who's playing? Is Gordon going to start on the left? Or Wilson and Isak going to be paired as a 2 up front? Or is it just going to be Isak? And what's happening in the ever-changing defence with so many injuries? That buzz, and Geordies they love a chat. So you just talk and you talk, and they come out and they just want to know. I mean, if you want to do any work on a train heading up to a Newcastle match, good luck with that, because they'll come and sit and have a sort of long debate about should Longstaff be given international recognition or a new contract, or it's great. And I got to know a lot of Newcastle fans on social media, and I said something stupidly about 10 years ago. I said there's no way that Mike Ashley will back Alan Pardew as manager, because that's not Mike Ashley's style. And I said, if he did, it won't happen. If he did, I'll swim the Tyne. It was just a sort of stupid comment you make on social media and don't think it'll come back to haunt you. And then a week or so later, I was scrolling through my mentions and I thought, well, there's quite a lot on here. And it was all sort of hashtag you're going to drown, hashtag get your Speedos on, hashtag get in the Tyne. And Mike Ashley had given Alan Pardew an 8-year contract. So I thought, well, God, there's nothing a lot I can do about this. I've got to sort of honour my bet. So I said I'll do it for the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation. Of course, all Newcastle fans, I knew they would contribute to that. And then the Port of... So there was this to and fro going back between me and Newcastle fans on social media. And then the Port of Tyne Authority said, you got to do it with a guide. It's a serious thing. There's a current. It's only like 250 yards wide. But, you don't mess with this river. So I had to ring up a local swimming guide who was very disappointed when I told him that I was swimming at widthways, not lengthways. He thought, oh God, amateur. But anyway, he agreed to help. And then there was this hilarious debate, and a couple of Newcastle fans said, oh, by the way, make sure, one Newcastle United fans on social media said, oh, by the way, make sure you're not wearing a grey wetsuit because it's the seal mating season and it might make you swim quicker, but it could be a bit risky. And then literally a marine biologist came on and said, it's not the seal mating season, but it is the sea otter mating season. So you might find someone having a go at your feet. So anyway, I did it, and Newcastle fans being just brilliant people, there were loads of them on the quayside as I got across. But that's the nature of the people who then head up disciple-like to the great church on the hill, St James's Park, and just make it so special.
It is. They're great people. I mean, I was in all of the northeast. My dad's family's from County Durham. Last night, I was fortunate enough to be up in Sunderland for a gig at the Stadium of Light. Anytime I can get up to that part of the world, I consider myself sort of blessed, and it is a great time. You touched on a little bit earlier on the Strawberry and Shearers and some of the pub scene around Newcastle, and around Newcastle United's ground. I think Strawberry is magical. I think it's one of the best, and literally on the doorstep of the ground. Is that something that you're able to sort of take advantage of, or are you often sort of ferried into a press box and whatnot like that?
I mean, I always get to grounds early because of traffic, because it's good to catch up. And I always take a picture of the outside of the ground and post it on social media about sort of 2.5 hours before. Because if you post a picture of the inside of the ground, people go, no fans, whatever, because the fans haven't got in yet. So I post a picture of the outside of the ground, and then it's very fortunate because people will respond and say, oh, so-and-so's playing well, but he tends to cut in on his left foot, see if he's sort of developing, whatever. So that's a useful Google. In terms of pubs, I mean, I don't drink, but I love pubs. So I wouldn't go into a pub before a game unless I was meeting someone for a coffee or a chat or whatever. I mean, often supporters groups want to have a sort of chat. And one thing I always do, as many people do, is go to the amazing food bank that's there just on Gallowgate, or opposite Gallowgate, and have a chat with the sort of the guys there. And this game's all about information. It's about absorbing information. Also, we're nosy. We're naturally curious people. I want to know what makes people tick, what they're doing, how the food bank's working, what the issue is for someone, for me, from the south, just to sort of get a feeling of the of the country, the issues, football issues, social issues. So just sort of talking to people there, even it's only sort of like just sort of 5 minutes, just picking up vibes. So less going into pubs, but still talking to as many fans as I can, because that's where you get your information from.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. If you are of an alcoholic persuasion and you're there as a neutral, I would pop it, if only for the memorabilia that they've got on the wall and in the Strawberry. It's almost like a little museum to Newcastle United in itself, and it genuinely is fantastic. I kind of want to talk about the Gallowgate End because I think it's brilliant, but I don't think it kind of gets the respect that sort of other great ends get, certainly in English football. I think the Kop is the most iconic and talked about. And then you sort of get the Stretford End and the Holt End. And in the past, you'd have the Clock End at Arsenal. But for me, the Gallowgate is right up there. How about for you?
That might be simply a reflection on Newcastle United haven't been at the very top for a while. It's only in the last couple of years with Eddie Howe coming in and more money and better players coming in and being more focused on Newcastle United, maybe a bit more promotion on certain televised games. But yeah, it's a fantastic place. I mean, I did a book with Michael Carrick, and one of the chapters was him talking about what it was like going on Gallowgate for the first time, and just the sort of the emotion and just that excitement of climbing to the top and just sort of looking down over all these heads and then just sort of seeing whichever players were starring at the time, and just the sort of the magic of it, the emotion, the noise, that sort of adrenaline pump before the start. Whether it's a sort of local hero or whatever music they do play, it's special. And obviously the fans have been given more more money to sort of produce banners. It's war flags, isn't it? They produce their own. It's just amazing what they do. So the atmosphere beforehand now is fantastic. I mean, the atmosphere has always been good. Although, I mean, I've been there, 20 years ago when it hasn't been completely full. There've been issues. And I can remember when Lees's was being rebuilt, and there was I'm sure it was Liam O'Brien took a free kick, and it just went sort of past a couple of sort of hard-hatted builders and went in through a window of a porter cabin that was on the Lees's as they were redoing it. So, I mean, they've been at the ground since 1892 or something crazy, and it has been rebuilt or added to. But I'm glad they're there. And Gallowgate, as you say, maybe it isn't. I think it is properly appreciated now, because maybe it's because the away fans are so far from it. But the noise that it generates, the colour that it generates. Strange thing to say about a team that plays in black and white, but the sort of the colour, the buzz, the atmosphere, the tifos, everything about it, it's pretty special.
Yeah, I think so, and maybe it's sort of also another sort of consequence of the away fans not having that sort of opposition, because it is a sort of whole lower bowl of Newcastle fans. The end doesn't necessarily get the prominence because it's not standing in contrast to a part of another part of the ground that's also singing. So yeah, there might be something in that. Who knows? Are there any other games, or maybe it's not games, maybe it's eras? Because we talked about the entertainers, we talked a little bit now. Are there any other sort of games or eras for St James's Park that particularly stand out in your memory?
Eras, Sir Bobby Robson, the great Sir Bobby Robson. And I can remember one press conference in particular when he signed Jermaine Genius from Nottingham Forest. And I went up. I don't normally do sort of unveiling press conferences, but Sir Bobby was on stage. This was at St James's Park with Jermaine Genius, and I had a slight particular interest because both of they had their birthday on the same day, 18th of February, my birthday. So I've always sort of looked at them, and I think there was 50 years apart, and you had this sort of 18-year-old kid, and you had this, my math's terrible, 68-year-old Sir Bobby. And Sir Bobby almost had the enthusiasm of an 18-year-old, and Jermaine Genius almost had that sort of world composure and experience and sang-froid of a 68-year-old. And I just thought, okay, what a great combination. And you could see they both actually enthused each other. So moments like that, moments like Alan Shearer's testimonial. I couldn't tell you what happened on the pitch, but it was an amazing night afterwards. Sir Les Ferdinand on the decks mixing the music, just that sort of Geordie happiness, Geordie nation, total reverence, respect for Alan Shearer. I think I've still got a scarf somewhere. Just brilliant, just a great night. And again, coming back to this central point, Newcastle United, St James's Park is all about the people.
It is, and I suppose and they've been tried over the last few years. I mean, recently it's gone well, but they had a long period away after the Sir Bobby sort of era, and still, I don't think, my dad. I'm not sure if my dad in his lifetime has seen a trophy, or at least one that he can remember. Maybe the Fairs Cup in the 70s, but obviously it's not the same as the Europa League or the UEFA Cup now. And so the people of Newcastle, is there a fan base that is more overdue success than Newcastle? When it happens, because it will happen eventually, they'll win something. What's the party going to be like there?
Well, how long is it going to last? I mean, it will be a long time in the building. They'll have a party. When I sort of walk up, whether from the station or if I sort of park, I think it's the Granger long-term car park. When I sort of walk up from there, I always talk to Newcastle fans, particularly the winter, said, are there no coat shops in Newcastle? Because no one seems to wear coats. And I would just sort of say, what is it about you guys? And then someone explained it to me. It's because the nightclubs are really hot. So people they basically just sort of hurry from nightclub to nightclub. This is a slight oversimplification of Newcastle life. But anyway, they don't need coats because once they get into a club, they're warm. Don't know how we got onto coats. But that passion for they're no coats, but what everyone seems to wear is black and white shirts. And then what I love about going to St James's Park and Newcastle generally is that non-match days in Newcastle, like match days elsewhere, in terms of you walk around Newcastle on a non-match day and everyone's got their black and white shirts on, and I think, oh my God, it's the game today. Am I going to miss it? Whatever. And then you realise, actually, no, it's like 4 days away. So they wear that black and white shirt like a second skin.
It's a lovely aspect as well. The city centre of Newcastle on the north bank of the Tyne. It's just lovely. I genuinely enjoy visiting. When this episode is going out, it's going to go out just before the Euros, and England will have played their first international at St James's Park for around about 20 years. I sort of really miss the interregnum that we had between the Wembleys when the national team toured. I think we should be at St James's Park more often than once every 20 years, shouldn't we?
Definitely. It's going to be interesting when the next round of the benches at Wembley expire, and if the whole place is the debts or the loans are settled on Wembley, then the Football Association may think about taking more games around the country, which they should do, because the England national team doesn't belong to northwest London. It belongs to kids in Tyneside, kids in Liverpool, kids in Manchester, kids in Bristol. So yeah, absolutely, it's brilliant for the game to have been taken north, and they should do more because of the atmosphere. I mean, look, the FA will look at it and think, we can get 90,000 in Wembley, we can get 52,000 in St James's Park. Corporate is less, but absolutely, England are going off to the Euros. It's brilliant that Newcastle fans, people of the North East, have been able to give them a good send-off, as well as Wembley will in a couple of days.
Yeah, I remember as well, there was a really big, well, say not big because it was Albania. It was a really vital game just after we'd beaten Germany 5-1 away. But we could screw it up in a particularly English way if we didn't do the job against Albania after winning away in Germany. And that was at St James's Park. And I don't know why, but that just reassured me. I just thought there'd be I just didn't think the crowd would allow the players to be complacent. And, maybe that's completely illogical and it doesn't make sense that sticking that game there rather than Old Trafford, it just gave me a sense of security. And it wasn't a great game. I think Steve McManaman scored, or, we won 2-0, but it was what we needed to get to Japan and South Korea. Going to the places that don't normally get these games, it just feels like the atmosphere lifts a little bit compared to Wembley. And I get the finances, but this is essentially a podcast that celebrates romance rather than economics. And
yeah, well, I'm with you on that. Imagine if you're a kid who was at the England game, a local kid, and maybe you're Wallsend Boys Club, and you're thinking, wow, I want to follow in how many Wallsend Boys Clubs have there been? Shearer, Beardsley, Carrick, Fraser Forster, and Alan Thompson, maybe Elliot Anderson one day, unless he goes to Scotland. And you will think, wow, I want to play for Newcastle United. I want to play for England. So I think from England and the Football Association's perspective, it's fantastic where you have a roadshow and you can sort of, England are in town, and it's not some sort of mystical thing down south, and it does inspire local kids.
What's next for you, Henry? Are you the Euros?
Yeah, going to the Euros. Yeah. I'll be doing it for radios, podcasts, TV, Substack, whatever. It's a sort of multimedia platform now, and it's great because I've done, this will be something like 15th tournament covering England, and you just look at the squad and you look at the attacking players, and from your perspective, Anthony Gordon, what a season he's had. I think he was deservedly your player of the year, Newcastle United. I mean, I just thought, what a fantastic player. I like his attitudes, I like his directness, I like his pace, I like his fearlessness. And then you talk to Football Association staff off the field, they've been so impressed with just what a good guy he is. The fact that it's the Southgate culture, the All Blacks culture. They want a bit of humility, the sort of no dickhead policies, if I can say that. And I think he fits all that. And I think whether Southgate eventually plays Foden off the left in the Euros, or whether he gives Gordon a go and he wants that pace. But yeah, Gordon at St James's Park. I mean, what a thing. I mean, different wide player to a Ginola and players like that in the past. But wow, just when they start running, there's just that roar. Because I find with Newcastle United fans, it's not simply passion for the team. And this, I guess, is an obvious thing to say, but it's not simply passion for the team. It's passion for the sport. It's passion for the skill. It's passion for someone expressing themselves. And in a way, someone in a black and white shirt expressing themselves is, for Newcastle fans, it's obviously a means to win a game, but also it's showing the world that we are here. We have fun, whether it's a night out, whether it's a winger destroying a fullback. It sort of puts them on the map. It's a bit patronising because Newcastle as a city is well established, but just that expression, I think, lifts people even more.
I think there is something there in terms of the creativity, because a lot of people look at the North and they have sort of stereotypical views. And I know Newcastle's known for its centre forward lineage of Jackie Milburn and Alan Shearer, etc. But if you think Chris Waddle, Paul Gascoigne, Peter Beardsley, David Ginola, there is that sort of creativity, and you can say like, oh, the crowd gets behind. I remember the Newcastle crowd getting behind a Cypriot winger called Nicky Papalavasalou, who was, didn't have anywhere near the level of skill as those other guys, but they will support a sort of creative, a creative player. And I think there's just, I know all fan bases are a little bit like that, but I think there is that, the joy and expressing yourself through football, which is if not unique to Newcastle, certainly more part of their culture than some other places.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're just those players that you mentioned. I mean, Paul Gascoigne, having Mars bars thrown at him and eating them and just sort of entertaining, scoring goals, Beardsley, Waddle. I mean, just, And I think it's good just sort of hearing about the club connecting more with the local boys clubs, just to make sure that you don't get a Carrick who goes to, or Shearer just goes to Central Station, avoids the hen parties and gets on a train going south and goes to respectively a West Ham or a Southampton, and that they actually stay locally. And just the whole sort of local hero theme, one of our own, I think that would just enhance the atmosphere even more if that's possible.
There's a great story, and I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but Shearer went for a trial at Newcastle. They didn't have enough goalies, and he got stuck in goal rather than playing outfield when he had his trial at Newcastle. I don't know. That's what my dad told me. I don't know if it's true or not. And if it's not, don't tell me. But if it is, please corroborate. But yeah, and then obviously he went down to Southampton. I should say, because people who are listening will know, I'm not a Newcastle fan. It's just my dad is. I'm a Birmingham fan, so I claim Jude Bellingham in terms of well, I grew up in Birmingham, and my dad I followed my mum in terms of football, but my dad stayed with Newcastle. But yeah, I claim Jude Bellingham from an England point of view. So,
well, it's quite a good claim.
There's some people who, like Stourbridge, will try and claim him as well, but really he's a blue nose. Are there any of the grounds for this is ultimately a stadiums podcast. Are there any of the grounds in Germany that you're particularly looking forward to getting to?
Well, I love the Allianz. I was at school in Germany as a kid, and I used to go to the old Olympic Stadium, and architecturally stunning, although it was not a great Bayern Munich team at the time, but just, not a ground built for noise, more a ground built for athletics. Obviously has even more resonance from an England perspective because of the 5-1 even Heskey scored. But the Allianz, Bayern's current home, I mean, it's just stunning. I mean, it's just everything about it. The walk up from the station, just the architecture of it, the smoothness of it. Again, coming back to the people element, the noise inside, which comes from all around the ground. Bayern fans are fantastic. So yeah, definitely the Allianz. Gelsenkirchen, I'll get flashbacks to missed penalties and red cards for England in 2006. But yeah, well, the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, I didn't have a particularly distinguished academic career, but I did my finals on the 1936 Olympics because I wanted to do something sports related at university. And so going there to Berlin and seeing the Olympic bell outside, and you can see amazingly there's still some swastikas there because under German law it's a sort of denial of of what happened under the Nazis if you get rid of the swastikas, and just to look at and see where Hitler stood and where Jesse Owens ran, and just that is a remarkable stadium where the final's going to be. So just I mean, I've normally gone to German stadiums, Bundesliga stadiums for Champions League matches, and the noise, because the German fans are brilliant. They've got fantastic culture. They've got the right balance in terms of who owns the club. But yeah, the fact that they're going to be full of fans from all over Europe is going to be fantastic. But yeah, definitely Allianz number one. Well, I love going to, and then probably Berlin number two.
I haven't had the privilege of going to Allianz yet. I might get out there for an NFL game because that's one of my other big passions. But I've been to Berlin, and I did sort of sports history as well at university. And yeah, that's if you're ever in Berlin, and it's just brilliant to go to in terms of sort of time capsule. And I love the gate in it. It's got such a unique feature that obviously the modern stadiums don't have, where 1936 was the first Olympic torch relay, as I'm sure you know, but that's where the Olympic torch came into the stadium through that gate. And it's that feature is still there. It's just architecturally stunning, and they've still got the swimming pool, and yeah, everything about the Olympic Stadium in Berlin is brilliant. If anyone ever gets a chance to go.
One place definitely worth going to, if you go to Dortmund, you come out at Dortmund and you go across the road from the station. I seem to spend my life in stations, and go to that amazing modern building slightly tucked in on the right, which is the DFB football museum. And you will immediately find a guide in there who will say, "Oh, do come over and see this interactive exhibition," which was basically, there were two buttons you had to press, and it was basically, was the ball over the line in 1966? You press 1 for yes, and 2 for no, it wasn't over the line, which seems to be the most pressed one by the locals. But yeah, and then you descend into this remarkable trophy room with all their World Cups, and I mean, that is a great experience. And I know a lot of the England fans will be going out and exploring that. Quite humbling, actually, for an Englishman to go in there.
Yeah. In the Dortmund Stadium, this is the chance I get to give a plug, we had Uli Hess from the writer who wrote Tor, the story of German football, and he's done biographies on Franz Beckenbauer and other such things. He was on a few weeks ago, and his episode will be in the archive talking about the Westfalenstadion. So if anyone's coming for Henry and has had their interest piqued, please go back into our archive and check out what Uli has to say about Dortmund, because he's been going for 47 years and he's an oracle on that.
It's a great book as well.
So I mean, he's a fantastic writer, and yeah, it's not just obviously the story, because the story is great, but the ability to convey that emotion in a second language is just something that completely blows my mind. A huge respect for anyone who writes anything, particularly a book, but to do it in your non-native language is amazing.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. I mean, there's some brilliant books on German football.
Well, Henry, thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your grand jewel of St James's Park, and thank you for clearing up the apostrophe issue. We'll get on that with.
I'm not sure I did really. Actually, I'm not sure I did, but it doesn't offend me, because it's the Park of St James. Yeah,
you state your colours to the mast, and that's good enough for me. But yeah, thank you for all those memories, and thank you for your time, and have a really good Euros, and I hope England keep you invested right to the bitter end.
Yeah, and good luck with Blues as well as Newcastle United.
Yeah, well, we'll do all right in League One, I'm sure.
Thank you, Henry. Loved that chat. Loved the little tangents we went on to there. Look forward to sharing another episode of The Ground Jewels with you next week. I'll see you next time.
Sports Social Podcast Network.